Going on? We got a special edition of the show this week. We haven't been on for a couple of weeks now. We don't do the last couple of weeks of the season, but we are back for Wildcard Weekend. We're going to break down the entire 6-game slate this weekend. It looks like it might just be me and Tim tonight. Hopefully G will join us eventually. Let's go ahead and get into the show.
For two, kickers are extra, I give them the boot. Ooh, going for two, sit back, relax while I grab me a brew. Ooh, now I'm reclining while putting my time and I'm ready to go. My spine is aligning and much my lineups, my bank account grow. I am so rich, but knowledge is all that I'm leaving it with. Ooh, listen to this, multiple options, how far can I get? Ooh, DFS Dynasty redraft tonight, I'm not finishing last. I'm finishing past any and all I am looking to last. What else? This spot is popping and I am so locked in and only opening the door when it is opportunity knocking. And all of these spots keep on talking and talking. So what are we talking? What kind of alignment? And running it deep, even players forgotten or came from the bottom or hitting that top end. And this spot is popping, yeah, this spot is popping. And woo! This is the armchair, yeah. Put up your arms, yeah. Sound the alarm, yeah, yeah, yeah. Ooh.
What is going on, and welcome to episode 448 of the Armchair Fantasy Show. I'm your host, of course, Geoff Lambert. You can follow me on Twitter at JeoffLambert77. We are here, of course, to break down the Wildcard Weekend slate, and I'm here with my co-host, Mr. Tim. What's up, Tim?
Oh man, I'm happy to be back. I was just telling you, man, I'm knee deep in dad life these days, so I'm happy to be on a show and talking some football.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Especially since I'll be talking some Packers football, man.
Yeah,
It's been a little while since I got to talk about some Packers football. Let's go.
For sure. All right, we got
There's no G here to roll his eyes at me either.
Yeah, there's no G. No G and there's no Raiders in the playoffs.
What up, Scott?
They got the number one pick, so maybe they'll get their quarterback this year.
Boy, they're gonna find a way to mess that up too, huh?
Yeah, it's the Raiders, man. It's what they do, for sure. So yeah, I haven't talked to you in a while, man. So how was the holidays? How did New Year's treat you? How did Christmas treat you? The whole nine.
Good, man. Good. I went down to Houston with my family for Christmas. My daughter made the trip like a pro. So for the most part, man, things have been really good for me. Had a couple good weeks. I'll talk about it a little bit here in the good bad, but yeah, man, it was an interesting way to close out the season.
Good stuff. And your daughter's first Christmas, man. How'd that go?
Awesome, dude. I got her a limited edition Daphne card. Like a Scooby-Doo numbered Daphne card, and I kept telling her I'm going to get her something. So when she opened it, she was super shocked and excited, and I got a great picture. So I was very, very happy about that.
Awesome.
We got her all kinds of stuff, though. It was awesome, man. I'm just so happy.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff. All right, let's go ahead and roll right into the rewind.
The weekly rewind. Rewind.
Obviously, we haven't played in a couple of weeks, or we haven't had a show in a couple of weeks at least. But you got one good, one bad of anything for the year, for whatever you want to talk about.
Yeah, so I ended on a good note in cash. Last week, the week 18 ball knowers week, cash game week, the cash game king himself came through with a big week where I beat the ETR optimal. So that was awesome. But unfortunately, the bad is that it was overall a losing year for me in cash, which is, I think, my first losing year in cash ever. I ended up basically breaking even on the season because of that Brock Bowers week where I played Brock Bowers in cash and he scored like 40. I ended up making some money in GPPs and kind of broke even for the season. But yeah, man, I definitely had to take a real long look at myself and think, man, what am I doing in cash where it is at a hard year? So
Yeah.
I'm going to keep going, but it was definitely a reflection point for me.
For sure, yeah, and I think having a baby probably kind of affected your research a little bit as well.
Yeah. Probably should have slowed the volume a little bit there, but
Yeah,
do what you do.
for sure. I ended up on a pretty good note, actually. Not only did I win in a bunch of my DFS leagues in the last couple of weeks, but also won my home fantasy league. So went out myself to a brand new iPad. So had a nice little end to the season. So that was kind of nice. But my one good and one bad. So my one good is it's draft season, right? That's one of our favorite times of the year here at Going for Two. We get to talk about all these new rookies coming in. We're going to be planning, of course, our draft show we do every year, which I know you're always excited about doing that show. So that's my one good of the year. I was looking forward to draft season, and my one bad is really our consistency this season, right? We kind of missed a bunch of
Yeah.
there. I was sick, Gerson was sick, you had a baby, so it was kind of hard to have
Life happened for
show,
sure.
for sure. But we still managed to pull through and have a pretty good season overall. So looking forward to
I agree.
another good season next year. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the slate. Like I mentioned, we talk about all 6 games today. As a 6-game slate, it's a Saturday, Sunday, Monday slate, which we don't normally do all 3 days. But when you're playing Wildcard Weekend, you got to kind of do that to have a big enough player pool to do it. Let's go ahead and get to the quarterbacks.
Let's talk quarterbacks.
All right, man, I'll let you go.
Before we get going on quarterbacks, I want to make it very clear. This may be a 3-day slate, but we're really talking about Saturday and Sunday, okay? That Monday night game is going to be gross. I'm going to be, spoiler alert, we're going to be playing the defenses, okay? There's a couple players from that game, but we're mostly focusing on the Saturday and Sunday slates.
For sure. Yeah,
Go ahead.
the Monday night hammer is not going to be really there, right? We usually have that Monday night hammer where we can put it.
Yeah.
Be that for sure.
Yeah, we say that and watch it ends up going off. But...
Right, exactly. It'll be the highest scoring game of the weekend. All right, so what do you got for one of your top quarterbacks here?
I think one of the first decisions you have to make this week, especially if you're going to be playing cash or single entry, is whether or not you're playing Josh Allen, right? Because great matchup, you would think, against the Jaguars, right? But he has not been super great on the road this year. And the Jaguars have been pretty good on defensively at home. And so it sets up as one of those games where it's like, maybe it's a close game and, at 7th K, he still doesn't get there. So I think he's got the highest upside on the slate, right? He's still Josh effing Allen, right? I don't want to get my first F word doing it, but yeah, you know what I mean? Like, he's still that dude, right? But you play Josh Allen for that 40-point ceiling. I just don't know if he has it here. So he's the first guy I'm playing, but I think I don't know if I'm going to play him in cash. And I think that's the real decision for me in single entry. If I'm going to play it all this weekend is who's that quarterback. So I may be putting my all eggs in the non-Josh Allen basket. We'll see.
Yeah,
I think he's the toughest call this week.
Yeah, for sure. The thing with Josh Allen too is like he has to do it all, right? He almost has to, be everything to the Bills. So it means he's either going to play awesome, amazing, and win this game somehow, or it's going to end up looking terrible because they haven't put pieces around other than James Cook. There's really nothing around him that really is going to help him do anything. Even the defense is terrible. So it's tough to pay for Josh Allen and knowing that he could flop this week.
Yeah, I heard somebody say Dalton Kincaid needs to step up this week if they have any chance. And I was like, if he stepped up last year, like I know he was a rookie, but if he stepped even a little bit last year during the Super Bowl, so it kind of rings hollow. Like, when has this guy ever stepped up, right? So anyway, yeah, I think my favorite quarterback on the weekend though is Jalen Hurts. I'm going to have a ton of Jalen Hurts. I'm sorry, Geoff. I do not have a ton of faith in your 49ers right now. I told my brother this the other day. Especially, and we'll talk about this later more, but if Trent Williams doesn't play, I think this could be an absolute railroad for your 49ers, in which case I want every piece of the Eagles. I mean, if he does play, I think it could end up being even better, but I don't think that they're going to necessarily slow down. They could score 35 like Dre did a couple weeks ago, have 5 touchdowns, and then be like, okay, now I'm done. So I think he has in my opinion, the best chance at a 40-point upside at $700 less than Josh Allen. So,
I'm with you. I'm a realist fan. I don't pretend to think that we're going to win this game. And looking at the way we got beat last week against Seattle, I think the Eagles are built very similar to that. They got the great defensive front, and they're going to basically run all over us because we can't stop the run. I think we're on our 3rd and 4th string linebackers in this game. So that's where Hurts is going to earn his money. Obviously getting those short yardage touchdowns that he always tends to get. So
absolutely
6.3. I think he's definitely a great play. One to play that I like this week a lot, and it's a little bit cheaper than both these guys, and that's Justin Herbert at New England. The biggest thing with Justin Herbert all season has been the offensive line and not being able to block, for Justin Herbert and giving him no time. Well, the one thing that the Patriots struggle with is getting to the quarterback. So if Justin Herbert can get time back there at 5.8, I think he can pick apart this defense. So I'm curious to see how he plays here at 5.8. He kind of had a pretty good close to the season, and I think against New England, he's got a good chance to put some numbers up. And at 5.8, I think he's way too cheap for what he could do against New England. And then I also like T-Law, who's been on an absolute tear down the end of the stretch here. I think the Jacksonville Jaguars over the last 6 weeks are the highest scoring team in the NFL. They've got 40-point and 38-point games down the stretch. And T-Law has been playing a monster games, both with his legs and through the air as well. So it's 6.1. I like him versus Buffalo as well. So I think that
Liam Cohen for MVP, right? Like
for sure.
He's been through obviously a couple OCs at this point, but nobody could unlock him. Get even a glimpse of the guy we saw at Clemson. People were saying he was washed, one of the worst contracts in the league, and now we're talking about him making a run. So I love the T-Law call. Go ahead, sorry.
Listen, last time I saw, I think he was the third. I think he's a distant third, but in MVP voting, which is insane to think. Even the season he wasn't even close to that. But now to be third, like I said, a distant third behind Matthew Stafford and Drake May, but to be even in the conversation at this point is pretty amazing.
Agreed. It's really kind of crazy the teams that are good this year. Like we could talk a whole show about that, but all the old guards of both conferences are kind of Philly's the only one that's still kind of there. Everybody else is that next gen, man.
Yep.
So we're seeing it early. We're getting a little glimpse of what the next few years are going to be.
For sure. All right, let's move down into the value tier here. And there's not a whole lot of value to talk about, but we each have one quarterback here. Go ahead and talk about your guy first.
I do. I got my prop here. It's kind of getting green screened out here a little bit, but I do got my cheese hat. It's the last show of the year. I'm going to put my homer hat on a little bit because I do think the Packers pull this game out. Vegas is kind of with me here because normally you would think they'd be getting 3 points if they thought it was an even matchup, and it's 1.5. So I think even Vegas thinks that this game is very much a toss-up. And the only way they win, I think, is with Jordan Love. Like Josh Jacobs says, he's close to healthy, and I really hope he is. But the Bears have given up a lot of big plays on defense. Their defensive line is the weakest it's been all year. Their corners have gotten a little healthier, but they can't cover multiple weapon teams. And I think that's the Packers, how they're going to win this game. It's going to be hitting you with Reed, hitting you with Watson, maybe a little Romeo Doubs, and then coming across, maybe then they hit you with Josh Jacobs when you get down to the 2 or whatever. But I think this is going to be a big Jordan Love game, and he's super cheap, right? I basically have him projected the same as Caleb, $300 less, 2 points less than Hurts, and he's $1,000 less.
Yeah.
So that's, my projections are saying it too. I also think this is probably the best game of the weekend, depending on how you feel about Buffalo and Jacksonville.
Right.
Because that game could get out of hand quickly, but other ones could very easily be blowouts, and I think this one could be overtime potential.
Yeah.
Right?
This one, if I'm not mistaken, I got to go back and look at all the games, but this is the only one that's a division game, right? Packers Bears is a division game, so those are always kind of close games, no matter what team is favored. Really, those all kind of come down to the end, so that could be an overtime game for sure.
That's what I was going to say. Is if on these 6-game slates, if you can nail the overtime game, that's massive leverage. So
he
won't be as highly owned, and he's fairly cheap. So, and they say he's fully healthy. They gave him the extra week to make sure he was fully healthy, and they're saying he's there.
Should be good to go. The only guy I have in there, and it's really based on ownership, and that is that game that we talked about that we don't want exposure to, and that's C.J. Stroud in that Monday game.
Yep.
At 5.2, the reason why I like Stroud, one, because there will be low ownership in that game, but two, I think his stacking options are pretty straightforward. So if that, if he does go out and have a 2-touchdown game, maybe gets 1 rushing touchdown, at that low ownership, and the fact that it's probably all going to be going to Nico Collins, maybe a little bit of Higgins, but it's very, very condensed group of targets there. So he's easy to stack, but pretty much GPP only. I would not play him in cash
Yeah,
at that.
agreed.
I think the over-under is like, what, 38.5 right now? I think last time I saw it, something like that. It's a really,
It
really,
is 38.5. Yeah,
that's an insane
ugly.
low total. But I think if I'm playing somebody in that game, I'm playing Stroud and stacking him with Nico Collins. All right, let's move into the tight ends.
Did somebody say tight ends?
All right, I'll go first on this one, and I want to talk about my boy George Kittle. And
Yeah.
really because of he has the highest ceiling, and he's going to have very low
Correct.
ownership. And if the 49ers are going to be able
And
to win,
see, because I show him as the highest guy on the 6-game slate.
really, okay, maybe I'm looking at a outdated sheet here because I didn't see much ownership at all on Kittle. So yeah,
Okay.
maybe I take that back then. Maybe he's not going to be as low owned as I thought. I thought that price point might scare people off. But I still think he still has the highest ceiling of any of the
Yeah,
tight
I bet
ends.
100%.
Now, obviously, we just talked about the defensive Philly and how good they are, and we saw how bad they looked. The Niners did against Seattle last week, so there's a chance that he does bust. But if they're going to find a way to win this game, I think he has to be a big part of this aerial attack. And Kittle at 6.2, I think, can put up some good numbers as long as they can find a way to contain that Philadelphia defense for sure. 6.2. What do you got for one of your top guys?
Yeah, I'm really deciding between two guys. Let's see. Do you have the other one? Okay, so I'll take Colston Loveland. I don't really like playing Bears. I'm going to have to put that aside. This dude has really come on. Earlier in the season, we were like, it was Tyler Warren. He was the obvious pick. Colston Loveland ain't that dude. He's getting beat out by Cole Kmet. He just needed some time, clearly. Not only are they using him way more than they're using Cole Kmet, that chemistry that he didn't have with Caleb earlier in the season, you're starting to see it. He looks for him in the red zone. I'm not going to say he's quite on that like Travis Kelce level, but it reminds me a lot of the Laporta season, where so much of his equity came from touchdowns, and that's what you're looking for here, right? Like you said, other than George Kittle having a 10 for 120 type game, it's going to be somebody who gets the 60, 70 yards and a touchdown that you need on this slate.
Yep.
So I think it's a real good chance that's Colston Loveland. Packers have been somewhat susceptible to the tight end, and he's a good price point, right? 4,400.
4,400. Yeah. Now he's the one that I have as the highest owned. So I think,
Yeah.
I have an outdated
There. I think it's a toss up there. Yeah, probably.
between the two of those guys. The other guy I have here, and we talked about them a little bit already, is Dallas Goedert. 4.2. I just mentioned we've got two linebackers. One of them wasn't even playing for us last week. We just signed him off the street. Now he's starting for us.
Yeah.
The linebackers are pretty much shot, and I think Goddard is going to eat in this game for sure. He could have a 2-touchdown game easy at 4.2. He's got a pretty good solid floor as well because he's been getting a ton of targets in that offense. So I like Dallas Goedert a lot in this game.
Yeah, he is by far my favorite sacking partner with Jalen Hurts. I feel like both Smith and A.J. Brown are a little overpriced on this slate when I first looked at it. So obviously, I think if you're going to have a ton of exposure to Hurts, you have to have him. But if I'm doing single entry 3 max, I'm probably playing him with Dallas Goedert.
Yeah, I think the way this game goes, and we kind of talked about it a little bit, with the Eagles being favored, it's going to be a lot of running and a lot of Goddard. I don't think they're going to need A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith very much. So I think it's going to be mostly those two guys, and then Hurts obviously getting his as well. So that's how I see this game going.
Yeah.
We'll move down into the value tier, and I'll go first here. There's not a ton that I love at value. So if I'm going to go value, I want to bet on someone that could have a monster game. And I'm going to go with Gatson here from the Chargers. He had that little stretch in the middle of the season where he was just a beast, right? We thought he's the next, top tight end in the league. And he's kind of fallen off since then. I think some of that accounts for the fact that they couldn't block for shit. And Herbert's running for his life constantly. So I think in this game, like I mentioned, with the Patriots not being able to get pressure on the quarterback, I think Gatson can sort of make a reappearance here. A cheap price tag at 3.4. He has some wheels. He has the ability to catch touchdowns in the end zone. He's a big target, so I think he can have a nice little game there at 3.4 and save you some salary from some of these top guys. What you got for your value?
Yeah, this was a guy who kind of came out of nowhere last week. first game off of the IR, I think, and that was Tyler Higbee coming out the gate, 5 for 91 and a touchdown, only 3,200. Panthers have been pretty susceptible to tight ends as well. The last game, obviously, the Panthers played against the Rams. Matthew Stafford did not look good, but his team was kind of banged up at that point. Adams should be fully healthy now. Two of the three tight ends are healthy. I think Ferguson might not play, but I mean, Higbee, I think, may have been that other end zone piece he was looking for. So he's my favorite, like, pay down option. And he's also a really good option for Stafford. You know, his double stacks are so expensive, right? It's really hard to put a good lineup around him. So if you do Stafford, Puka, Higbee, or Adams, Higbee, and just fade Puka and hope that they get all the touchdowns, massive, massive leverage there. That's probably one of the biggest leverage spots on this whole slate is fading Puka in a smart way.
Yeah.
Right? Like, anyway.
Yeah, try to get a little bit of Kyron Williams mix in there as well. But yeah, because Puka's going to be highly owned. It's going to be, you know, someone you can fade in tournaments, and hopefully, you know, that pays off for you.
Yeah, I don't see how he's not the highest owned play on the slate.
Agreed.
Right? I mean, maybe it ends up being CMC, but we'll see. I don't know. I think, in my opinion, we'll talk about that when we get to running back, but talk about Trent Williams. That's when I'm making that decision.
Yeah. Speaking of running backs, let's go ahead and jump into those.
It's time for running backs. Running backs.
All right. Why don't you go ahead and talk about CMC and the quote unquote Trent Williams plays or doesn't play?
Yeah, I feel like that team just doesn't move right when he doesn't play. They end up using Kittle more to block, or they try and bring an extra offensive lineman. His efficiency has been terrible this year. That's not a secret, right? He's gotten there on his passing game, which I think he can here too, right? I'm not saying that's out of the question, but if this game gets really, really out of hand, he's just not going to get there, right? So I think it really depends. If Trent Williams plays, I'm in because I think they're going to be able to give Purdy enough time to get to one or two reads and then check it down. If they don't, I forgot who that guy was who played last week, first start, right?
Yeah.
He was a turnstile, right? Purdy had no time in the pocket, and he doesn't even have time to check it down, really, right? He was throwing the ball at McCaffrey's feet. The interception play, obviously, he threw behind him. Boy, that was a weird play too. But I don't see how he's going to get there if he doesn't play. So for me, talk about the other big decision point this weekend, because I don't think you can play Allen, Puka, and McCaffrey. So you're going to fade one of those three guys. And I think for me, this is where I'm going to go.
Yeah, and I think there's also another smaller piece to that also needs to be talked about, not just Trent Williams, but Ricky Pearsall. Because we don't have a whole lot of threats beyond Christian McCaffrey. Jawan Jennings is more a possession guy. He's not going to, burning people down the field and stretching the field a little bit. Kittle's kind of that guy, but with the blocking issues that we're having, he has to stay back a lot more than offense. Right. So without Ricky Pearsall, it's basically Christian McCaffrey. They're just going to keep Christian McCaffrey and shut him down, which is what Seattle did. We didn't have Pearsall in that game either. Pearsall gives us a little bit of a deeper threat, a little bit of a threat at all on the outside that we need. So I think he's also a piece that you want to pay attention to. I'll go next.
I think the Eagles match up really well against McCaffrey too. That they have linebackers that can actually run with him in space, and that's the killer.
Yep, agreed.
Right, Reed Blankenship and stuff like that. I guess he's a safety, but yeah.
Agreed. All right, and I got my lock here.
Yeah.
It's So I'm going with Travis Etienne. The Buffalo Bills, surprisingly this year, they are the worst running defense left in the playoffs. And it's not even close. They haven't been able to stop the run at all. And if you look at the Jacksonville Jaguars over the last, I think, 6 weeks, they are one of the top running offenses right now. Obviously, some of that's Trevor Lawrence as well. But Travis Etienne's been finally doing his thing, kind of showing what he did a couple of years ago when he was the RB2 in the NFL in fantasy. And I like Etienne a lot at that price point, especially at the 6.6 price. I think Etienne is the reason that the Jacksonville Jaguars can beat the Buffalo Bills if they stick with Etienne and he's able to break off some big runs there against that soft Buffalo defense. So I like Etienne a lot.
Yeah.
A couple more running backs you got there. Go ahead and talk about one of the guys you got listed there.
Yeah. We already talked about Barkley. I'll let you talk about a little bit more about him, but it was you touched on him a minute ago. We were talking about Stafford. I was going to try and hold it. It was Kyron. I really like Kyron. I know toward the end of the season we saw Blake Corum getting more run. I think a lot of that was game plan based. I think when we get into the playoffs, it's going to be the Kyron show, or mostly the Kyron show. There's only a couple. Maybe this is the other thing we should talk about. There's only a couple of real numbered, like true bell cow running backs on the slate. Most of these guys are in splits. And so we're trying to guess the splits, right? And I think if there's one guy who's the most likely to get the 80-20 who's been getting the 60-40, it's probably Kyron.
Mm-hmm.
They know they like to use him in the red zone. They definitely aren't using Blake Corum much in the passing game. And the Panthers are probably the second worst rush defense after the Bills.
Yep.
Right? So Kyron's what, 6,400?
Yep.
And the other thing I was going to mention, hold on, let me say this. I was going to say, I don't think he's as popular. We talked about Puka a second ago. He's going to be him and McCaffrey, right? Coin flip, which one's going to be the most popular player on the slate? Kyron is 5th among running backs, right? So that's definitely one of my favorite plays. I think Kyron and Saquon is probably my favorite running back duo.
Yeah.
As of now.
Yeah, and he's 5th, right? But you got to think this is a small slate. So being 5th is in 8th or 9th on a full slate. So
absolutely.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, there's not a lot of guys down there that you're going to be playing.
Right. And looking at his targets too, I mean, like you said, Corum's not much involved in the receiving game. Over Tyron Williams' last 3 games, he's got 14 targets. So you love that for him as well. So he's the pass catcher in that offense for sure.
Yep. And they continue to use him more in the red zone. Last 3 weeks, he's had 13 red zone opportunities to 5 for Corum.
Yep.
So that's what we call high value touches, right? He's still dominating the high value touches. So that's what I want on the slate.
All right, yeah, and I don't want to beat the dead horse, but once again, my Niners defense is not very good. So Barkley at 7K is in play. We saw what the Seahawks did to us last week. We couldn't even tackle a running back on, what was it, 3rd and 17 or whatever it was.
Yeah, boy, backbreaker.
That was just brutal. So at 7K, Barkley obviously is a big play. And then you mentioned Josh Jacobs earlier as well at 6.3 being a good play.
Yeah, if he really is healthy, he's the highest work share at that price.
For sure. And yeah, the fact that he's been injured brought his price down a little bit too. So at 6.3, he's totally playable at full health.
Yep.
Go ahead and give us your one value guy you got there.
Yeah, so this guy's made me a lot of money the last couple weeks, and yeah, he's been playing against some bad defenses, but I think there's been a bit of a shift on the Patriots where they like Ramondre Stevenson more as the pass catching back, which is kind of crazy. Like he profiled as that LeGarrette Blount, David Montgomery guy. But they've been using him more in that kind of Alvin Kamara role, right? So at 5,800, I expect the Patriots to win this game. But I also expect them. We've seen that they put a lot of focus on running the ball, right? Drake may be MVP candidate, but I think they're going to once again establish the run. He's been hyper efficient against 2 bad teams, but the big thing for me, we just talked about him being 5th. Ramondre Stevenson is like 10th, 12th on a 6-game slate.
Yes.
Like nobody is playing this guy, and that's the big thing for me. Is we always talk about, particularly in GPPs, right? What percentage are they owned, and what's the percentage they're going to be in the winning lineup, right, or optimal lineup? I think he's what's he projected? I should say 4%, 5%. Yeah, I think it's way more likely than 4 or 5% that he ends up being a 30-point game again in their optimal.
Yep.
So he's my favorite low-owned guy, not even close.
Yep.
I'll be wrong this week, and it's going to be Henderson. Right, It's finally going to be the Henderson week, but I'm going to go ahead and say that Ramondre has turned the corner there.
Yeah, good stuff. I like that Ramondre call a lot. I'll go with I got 2 value guys. One of them is more of a low ownership play, so I'll go with the other guy I have on my list, and that's Kenneth Gainwell at 5.9 versus Houston. Again, it's going to be a low scoring game, but at 5.9, We know how much Rodgers hates to take sacks, and he's going to be checking it down to Gainwell, I think, a lot. And Gainwell actually looks like the better running back out of the two, Jalen Warren and Gainwell. Gainwell's more explosive. He's more involved in the passing game.
That's the big one, yeah.
Yeah, they find
Rodgers trusts him, which is the big one, right?
Yep.
Which is funny because I think the year started with him saying, "Hey, we need to give Warren more touches."
Yep.
Right? Because he had like a couple big plays in one game, and then after that, it was just the Kenny Gainwell show.
Yep.
That's definitely one of the more surprising developments of the year, right? Because we heard for years in Philly, oh, they're going to give Kenny Gainwell more touches. Never happened.
Never did.
And so this year they're like, oh yeah, the Steelers want to give Kenny Gainwell more touches. We're like, yeah, okay, yeah, Kenny Gainwell. Like we were already writing in. I don't even remember his name anymore. Caleb Johnson.
Yeah,
I don't even remember.
Yep, the rookie.
So yeah. So anyway, that's definitely one of the best fall stories of the year. Was did you draft Kenny Gainwell?
For sure. And the only other guy I had on there is more of just a pivot, and that's Kyle Monangai versus Green Bay. I think it's going to be a kind of a slugfest, and I think he's more of the slugfest running back. He's the short yardage guy, so at 5.2 low ownership, he's someone I think's in play as well.
He was a guy I was on this year, and that actually helped me. There was a couple of games he really came through for me, so he was like one of my favorite round 17 picks on Underdog.
Yes,
and that worked out well.
I had a bunch of him in best ball as well, for sure. All right, let's get to the receivers.
And now, wide receivers.
I'll let you go first here, and you can pick which Rams receiver you want to talk about here.
Yeah, right. That is the question this week. I'm going to take Puka. I think he's as close to he's not my lock, but he's as close to a lock on the slate as you're going to get. He is the biggest decision point, I think, of the weekend. The most leverage that you're going to get is whether or not you want to play Puka. I think if you're playing cash, you have to play him. If you're playing single entry, it's going to be really hard to fade him. Going into big tournaments, you have to decide what you want your stance to be. Because I think if you go in and say, I'm going to play 40, 50% Puka and just match the field, you get zero leverage there, right? You're either going to play 100% Puka or zero, I think, in GPPs. So that's going to be my stance. Right now, I'm leaning toward 100. If Trent Williams doesn't play, he said he's confident he's going to play, but he's also a game time decision.
Yeah.
I may go zero, but I think right now I'm looking at 100% Puka.
Yeah, I think in cash for sure. I think cash you start Puka and you build from there. There's just no way to fade him in cash. The other guy we have obviously is Adams, back fully healthy. Just was a touchdown machine this year, and I don't see that changing at Carolina at 25.
He had two in this game when they played last time.
Yep.
Another guy they gave a week off to, right? Probably could have played last week if they really needed him, but they said no.
Yep.
We'll see you next week.
See you next week for sure. And he's awesome in the playoffs too, historically. So he's a good pivot. He's 2,000 cheaper than Puka with some well.
Agreed.
The other guy I have in that top there.
Nobody will be surprised if Devontae Adams is in the optimal lineup. I'll put it that way.
For sure. The other guy I have, again, going back to that low-scoring game on Monday night, I got Metcalf coming back from his 2-game suspension. I think Rodgers really missed that big target, especially down towards the end zone. He didn't have that target to go to. They probably win that. I forget who they played in the second to last week of the season when they went to Calvin Austin, I believe, or they went to MBS like 3 straight times to catch the game-winning touchdown. I think if that was Metcalf, they probably win that game. But of course, suspended wasn't there, so I think Metcalf is a decent play at 5.4. And then you have your lock.
Yeah, you could tell Rodgers did not like having to rely on Calvin Austin. Like he was going to all the tight ends, all the running backs, like give me anybody. MVS came out of retirement. Anybody but this short little dude.
Yep, for sure. All right, let's get to your lock.
Lock it in.
Yeah, maybe Vegas knows better than me, and they think this is going to be the slugfest that you think it's going to be. But my first thought when I opened this slate was, how is Christian Watson 4,900? I have him with the same, more or less, projection as Ted McMillan, which is over $1,000 higher. He's just, to me, the best mid-range play on the slate. The guy who has the most gives you a similar floor to a lot of guys in his range, but a much higher ceiling. There's one guy we're going to talk about here in a minute that you and I both have that I think is close. But I think it's those two guys and then a huge gap with anyone else in that range. So yeah, Christian Watson, I love him this week. He had the best connection with Jordan Love when he was fully healthy. He fits perfectly. Like when they played the Bears the first time, like that was the dude. So yeah, I think, man, I really, assuming Love is good to go, right? If he really is 100% healthy and Watson's 100% healthy,
Yep.
this is the 25 point guy you got to have at 4,900.
Agreed. I love Christian Watson a lot. And the other guy you're talking about, I'm gonna give his last 3 games stat lines before I give his name. Week 16, he had 10 targets, 145 yards, and a touchdown. Week 17, he had 10 targets, 115 yards, and then in week 18, he had 9 targets, 87 yards, and a touchdown. And he's only $5,000, and that's Parker Washington, who just had an absolute monster 3 game stretch there. He shows that for some reason he's playing better than Brian Thomas Jr. And it just, haven't raised his price enough yet. Going up against Buffalo at that price point, Parker Washington's going to be a really popular play as well, especially with the way he's been lately.
Yeah, and unlike a lot of slot receivers, particularly like guys that are not like CeeDee Lamb level, they scheme a lot of targets for him. Like last week, they actually were running trick plays for Parker Washington when they were up. I think they were up 28 or 35 or something. They were still running trick plays for Parker Washington. So he clearly is a huge part of what they do, the most consistent receiver on that team. And, I love your ETN call, but I think that they can't beat Buffalo with the run game alone.
Yeah.
They're going to have to throw the ball. And, for 5K, like that's where I want to live this week.
For sure.
Right in that range.
For sure. You got 2 other guys there. Go ahead and talk about both of your guys, and then I'll get to my guy.
Yeah, as a former sit call of mine, didn't work out the last time. We're hoping the Cokeheads unite this time. Jalen Coker definitely come on toward the end of the year. He got fully healthy. He was really big in this game last time. And I think he's got a decent shot at a 15, 18-point score at 4,500. We talked about it. You want to fit, Josh Allen. You want to fit Puka. You want to fit these high-end guys. Especially if you're playing like 2 stud running backs. I think you're going to have to play Puka and 2 of these cheaper guys, right? That's how you're going to make that lineup work. So for me, it's like Puka, Watson, and Washington, or with Jalen Coker.
Yep, for sure. In week 18, in a must-win game, even though they still lost it and somehow made it into the playoffs, he had 7 targets, 47 yards, and a huge touchdown. So they definitely were trying to go to him, quite often there. So yeah, it's a great call there. And then you got
he has 1 less target than Ted McMillan in the last 2 weeks, and he's $1,500 cheaper.
Yeah, for sure.
I think on this slate that's huge.
And then you got Jaden Reed down there at 4,000. Go ahead and talk about him a little bit.
I do. He had a little too much ownership for him to be my sit call. I got to actually, now that you mentioned this, I got to bring this up. Last I looked, it did not look like Vontavian Wicks was going to play.
I think,
and I think that if
he was doubtful.
Is that still the case?
Yep.
Yeah. He's out. He's actually listed as out. So yeah, Jaden Reed was splitting a lot of the slot snaps with Wicks. And that's not the case. Like, I don't think they're going to be a ton of like Bo Melton, Malik Heath, right, in this game. I think when it's 2 receivers, it's going to be Dobbs and Watson. But when it's 3 receivers, it's going to be Reed every time. Mm-hmm. And you can really attack Chicago in the slot. They're weak there. They're giving up 4 or 5 points a game above expectation of slot receivers. And he's 4K, right? Like, he's one of the few guys down here. I was talking about with somebody the other day. He's basically priced like a tight end, right? Like, on this slate, he's cheaper than Goddard. He's cheaper than Loveland. And I think that he probably has maybe not the same projection as those guys, but similar, right? In terms of upside too. So I really like Reed. I think if you play, like I said, Puka and Reed, it makes lineups look a lot prettier, right?
Yep.
Than some of these other guys. So yeah, I told you, I really think Jordan Love is going to come out. He's going to sling it. And that's how they're going to move the ball against the Bears.
For sure. The only other guy I have is sort of an honorary send off.
Yes.
My boy, copy paste Keenan Allen at New England at 4.2. He hasn't been great down the end of the season, but he is still that third down guy that he's trusted by Herbert. So I think he could have a decent game at 4.2. Especially if it becomes what I think it's going to become, where Herbert's got a lot of time to throw. I think Keenan Allen will be able to get open, and they'll find him on a bunch of short routes there. So at 4.2, I like Keenan Allen a lot as well.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to our defenses.
Defense, 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 defense.
All right, I'll let you talk about all the defenses you got there.
Nice. Well, we talked about it earlier in the show, right? The big decision point for them is whether or not Trent Williams plays. I don't know that we'll know before this slate locks, right? Because they said he's a true game time decision. I think going into it, maybe you leave some late swap opportunities here, because for me, the Eagles are the number one defense by far if he doesn't play. And they fit at 2,900. They fit really nicely into lineups. If we don't get what I might do, and I thought about this going into today, is go ahead and leave 2,900 for defense and then just leave 300 and play the Steelers if Trent Williams plays.
Yeah.
Right? If you're playing the 6-game slate, because they play Monday night, I like the Steelers at 2,600. I think they're a good play. But I definitely prefer the Eagles. So that's kind of where I'm going there. I did mention the Chargers just as a pure punt at 2,200. But, the difference in the pricing on defenses is not that much, It's not like we're saving 700-800 here. So I would really only play the Chargers if I wanted to do one of those like Puka, CMC, Allen lineups. I needed every dollar I could. But I think the Steelers and Eagles both have 10-plus point potential. Because if that one defense scores 15, you have to have them.
Yep.
Right? And it doesn't matter how cheap the Chargers are.
Yeah, I had the Eagles as well for all reasons that you just mentioned. The only other team that I had on my list here is the Chicago Bears.
I know.
It's because if you look at Saturday's weather report, there might be some snow in the fourth, and Chicago gives up a lot of big plays. However, they are number one in the league in getting the ball
turnovers.
And if you get Jordan a bad game, eat those 3 turnovers, and one of them goes for a pick 6 at 2.5, Chicago could be a good play as well. So.
I know Toyotathon is over, right? We're in January now, so I'm not going to say that that's not a little concerning for me.
For sure. All right, let's get to our stacks.
Going4two.com's weekly stack report.
I think your stack was pretty easy to figure out if you listen to the show. So go ahead and give us your stack here.
Yeah. I waited 45 minutes into the show, so I'm going to say, fuck the snow. Fuck Chicago. Fuck Toyotathon. It's Jordan Love for life. Jordan Love, Christian Watson, Jaden Reed. Bring it back with Colston Loveland. Hope that game goes into overtime and you win all the money.
Yeah, I love it. I love that. So I kind of went the opposite way. You went with your homers, and I went with the opposite. I went with the.
You did. You were the anti-homer.
Yeah,
you were going to win all the money, or your team is going to win. So win either way.
Win either way for sure. I got Barkley, Goddard, and the Eagles defense as my stack this week. And like Tim said, if I'm either going to win the money or my team's going to move on to the playoffs. So either way, it's a win for me. Love it. All right, let's get to our final sick calls of the year.
And now, the sick call of the week.
All right, sick calls were tough this week because in the playoffs, those guys, those don't really show up very much. It's very tough. So tell me who you got for your sick call.
I do. I really had to hunt for a sick call on this one. And so I said, when in doubt, go for the homer play. So I'm going with Luke Musgrave, 2,600 tight end. You talked about, I talked a minute ago, if I wanted to do a Puka, CMC, Josh Allen lineup and not play Chargers defense, how can I make that happen? The only way I could find it would make it look good was play Luke Musgrave or Tyler Higbee. Yeah. So that my sick call, I don't know if Higbee was sick enough, so I went with Musgrave. He has not been 1/10 as good as Tyler Kraft was, which is crazy because he was drafted, I think, ahead of him.
Yep.
But I also think that there is definitely potential against this Bears team, right? For him, he doesn't need much, right? At 2,600, even if he gets you, 3 for 40 and a touchdown, that could be within striking distance of the top play, right? Geoff talked about it with George Kittle. He's really the only guy that could be on an island right? Like 30-point wise.
Yep.
So if everybody else is 15 to 17 and Luke Musgrave can give you 12 to 14, that could be all you need.
Yep. That's it. That'll be good. All right, my sit call. I did go homer with my sit call, and I mentioned Ricky Pearsall earlier in the show, and I don't think he's going to play. And I do think we got to have some kind of downfield threats to give the Eagles a little bit to think about. And that guy is Demarcus Robinson at 3.3. He probably only needs one big play. He had a really big play 2 weeks ago in the game against Chicago, I believe. He had a very long, deep play, almost scored a touchdown on that one. He needs that kind of game in order to open that defense up a little bit to give CMC a chance to do his thing. So at 3.3, I'm hoping for one big Demarcus Robinson play here. It's at low ownership as well against Philly. So I'll take Robinson as my last sit call.
What happened to Ricky Pearsall? Because they waited forever to bring him back. They brought him back. He had one game. They gave him a bunch of work. He got hurt again, and now he's out.
It's his PCL. He keeps coming back too soon. He came back.
Is that what it is? Yeah.
Went out again. I think even the game against Chicago where he had a really big game, he went out after the very first play, but then still played the entire game, had a good game. But then, of course, his PCL just kept getting re-injured. I think he just tried to come back too soon and just should have stayed off.
Yeah. Well, he figured he got shot. So, like, at this point, a knee injury is nothing, right? Yeah. Surely I can play through that.
He thinks he's Wolverine.
Apparently not.
He has the healing factor to come back. So,
yeah, or Deadpool. He's got something going on.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. All right. That wraps up our last podcast of the year, of the season, I guess. 2 year, but of the season. I did mention at the top of the show that we'll be doing our draft show sometime in April. We do it every year. You know, it's one of our favorite shows to do. So be on the lookout for that. Me and Ryan and Chu are going to be doing some rookie profiles here pretty soon. So be on the lookout for that as well. Tim, any parting words before we get out of here?
Yes. Speaking of the draft show, okay. I try not to toot my own horn too much. I've talked so much about the Packers this show. I want everyone to be aware. I said it the night it happened. I did not want them to draft Matthew Golden. I said he was overrated. I said he was not much better than Isaiah Bond, who was going to go undrafted and then go to Cleveland for nothing. Now, look, he is a decent player, but he was never, ever, ever a first-round pick. I said it at the time. I have tweets to prove it. I hate it that they finally paid up for a wide receiver and they picked the wrong guy. But that's the great thing about draft season, right? Yeah, I thought, defensive end, right, linebacker, they're going to go get another Georgia guy, and they draft Matthew Golden out of Texas, man. And he can't even get in behind. He was playing last week in a totally useless Week 18 game. So I really hope this draft season we see them go back to what's worked for them year after year, which is drafting good, solid players on the line, right? Offensive and defensive line, maybe a corner. Because apparently Trayvon Diggs is going to start for the Packers this weekend. Boy, talk about a turn of just twist of fate there, man.
For sure.
But yeah, I'm going to feel so weird cheering for Trayvon Diggs this week. But you know what? Laundry over everything, right, Geoff?
Yeah. If he gets that pick six, you're going to forget about everything. You're like, all
right. Boy, let me tell you, if Trayvon Diggs pick six Caleb Williams, I might have to get his jersey. I will take that one, man.
Good stuff.
But yeah, it's been a good year, crazy year.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I've enjoyed every minute of it, man.
Yep, I was just going to say, thank you. Obviously, having the daughter kind of made things difficult for you to be on, but you still made, quite a few shows here. So really appreciate that.
I have.
Appreciate G. Obviously he's sick tonight. He fell asleep and never got back up. So G, if you watch this later on, man, we miss you. Sorry you couldn't make the last show, but
he's hiding from ICE right now. Wait to the end of the show to say this. Maybe we won't get censored, but currently hiding from ICE officers in the Utah area.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. All right, guys. Everybody in the chat, thanks for joining us all year long. We really appreciate y'all, and have a good wildcard weekend. If your team's in the playoffs, hopefully have a good run in the playoffs, and we will see y'all during draft season. Peace.
Yeah, see you on the draft show.
For sure.
Go Pack, go!